Like I had said, we're going to be spending most of our time in John 10, and I've dubbed this morning's message Sheepish. We're going to be hearing a lot of different terms, but of the two that I want us to focus on is this idea of shepherd and sheep. This idea that Jesus is the good shepherd and we are his sheep. But before we start reading some of the scriptures, I have a story for you guys. So how many of you drive? How many of you have your permit? Anybody? Yeah, are you guys doing like your behind the wheels yet? Have you done any of them? Yeah. Do you remember your first time? Was it like super awkward? Yeah. Yeah. You get yours in June? Are you a senior?
No, it's a guy's name.
Got it. Okay. That was your instructor's name? Okay, so I have a story of the first time I did my behind the wheel, or my first behind the wheel, right? So I had my permit, I passed the test, and I was really nervous, because all I had done was go and practice driving around the parking lot with my mom and dad. They taught me how to park, parallel park and whatnot. But so I'm walking outside. There's like this big, it was like a Ford Explorer, something along those lines. And I have my learner's permit, and there was some other paperwork. I opened the door to the driver's seat, and there's this guy. I'm pretty sure his name was like Bob or something weird like that. He was like super just your typical like old kind of pudgy white dude, something like that. And yeah, his name was like Bob or whatever. So I give Bob my permit, and he's looking over the paperwork, and I'm like sweating. I'm super nervous. Like I've only ever driven with my mom or dad in the car, and this guy's totally gonna judge me because he's gonna, I suck at driving. I've never done it before. So I give Bob the paperwork. Everything looks like it's in order. I put on my seatbelt. I look at him. And I'm like, Bob, I'm really nervous. I've only driven with my parents in the car, and I've only driven in parking lots. And he says, all right, give it some time. Like with anything else, practice makes perfect, right? I'm like, all right, let's do it. He goes, kind of looks at me weird. You got to turn on the car first. I'm like, right, good idea. So I start the car, and we drive, whatever. After a few minutes, driving the back streets, I get super comfortable. I get lax, my shoulders start dropping. I forget that Bob's even in the car. I'm 2 and 10, I'm doing my thing. Actually, let me tell you guys a side note. So this actually is in my sermon, but I thought it was really important to share. So how many of you guys consider yourself like good drivers? Yeah? I don't know if I believe it. But anyway, so I was like 17, maybe 16, 17, and it was super early in the morning. I was heading to first period, right? And my parents live at the top of a hill, and I was like backing up because there's this big truck that was my neighbors in front of me. So I start my car, I put my foot on the brake, I put it in reverse, I step on the gas, and I turn around to look, and I go forward. I nail my neighbor's truck because my car was in drive, not in reverse. His car is like, the car alarm was blaring, it's going crazy. And I did what anybody would do in that situation. I turned off my car, shut the door, and ran back to my parents' house, shut the door, and was peeking through the blinds because I was like, did anybody see me? Did I get away with this? He has this big truck. I had this small little Oldsmobile that looked like a grandpa car, right? So his alarm's like blaring off or whatever, and I am peeking through the blinds. Did anybody see? Nobody's out there. So his alarm turns off. I walk back outside, nothing happened. I reverse and I bail, and that was the end of that. Okay, going back to the behind the wheel. Going back to the behind the wheel. So when there's the instructor seat, you're sitting obviously driving, and then the instructor's sitting shotgun. They have a steering wheel, they have a gas pedal and brake or whatever to correct you in case something's going crazy. So here I was with Mr. Bob, and we're going down. You guys know where Stonehill is in Dana Point? The big hill that you have to go down, right by the Circle K. You guys know where that is kind of? It's right by Lupe's. But anyway, so I was going down the hill. I'm driving 2 and 10, of course, and then Bob's sitting right here, and there's this awkward red light that's right in the middle of the downhill. And of course, you never want to hit that awkward yellow red light, or the yellow light, and then it's on the verge of going red. So there's a few cars stopped. It turns red right down the hill, and I have my foot on the brake, and I'm about to press it, and then you just hear a homeboy Bob had slammed on the brakes because he didn't think I was going to do it. He didn't think I was going to stop. I was going to, just the next second after, homeboy freaking stepped on the gas. Right? It was this idea of I forgot in that moment I was so locked and getting so comfortable driving that I forgot that Bob, the instructor, ultimately had the control. He could overrule anything that I was doing because I was so new at it. So again, as we start reading through John, let's remember the role of a shepherd, right? A shepherd is called to look after his flock. He's ultimately the one in control. As you can tell by this photo, sheep aren't the most intelligent of animals. They can even get a bucket stuck on their head. You see, it looks like Tony. Yeah, that's whack. Anyway, so the role of a shepherd is not only to protect his flock and his sheep, but it's making sure that they're cared for. The shepherd's responsibility is every single one of those sheep. If one of them is going astray, he's going to leave that flock, that herd, go get that one that's going astray and bring it back to him. All right, with this in mind, let's open up the word. All right, John 10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Other versions of that say that I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. Verse 11 reads, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Here we have this idea of a thief, obviously, coming to wreak havoc, to steal, kill, and destroy. But then you have Jesus saying that no, the thief may be about those things. He may bring those things out, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. The good shepherd says no. Even if the thief is about those things, I have come to bring life to the full. Again, as we continue reading, we're going to see this line, the good shepherd. We're going to see that repeatedly throughout. So let's keep this picture in mind. The role of a shepherd, and again, we are the sheep. You guys understand that? You guys get that? Shepherd is the one that's in charge, and we are his sheep. As he's the owner of us, we're called to respond. We'll get into that later. Let's keep reading. All right, John 12. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as I know the Father, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I'll lay down my life for the sheep. In verse 10, we saw the word, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. In this section, we have this idea of a wolf coming to attack. The enemy and the wolf both embody the same thing, this idea of destruction, of chaos. And they both represent sin and death. The enemy, the things that the enemy brings about. There's also this idea of a hired hand. So if somebody is just being paid like a few bucks an hour, they don't actually own the sheep. If it comes under attack, what are they going to do? They're going to bail because they have nothing at stake. The sheep aren't their responsibility. They're just hired to look after them. But if a shepherd truly owns the sheep, he's going to fight for them. Obviously, like his possessions are going to be at stake. And that's something, again, to keep in mind. If Jesus were just a hired hand in this situation, paid a few bucks, and it came under attack, he would just bail. But if he truly is the good shepherd and cares for us, he's going to say, no, that ain't happening. He's going to literally stand in front of us and fight on the wolf, on the front lines. Let's keep reading. Verse 16. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen, and I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice. There shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. Verse 18. No one takes it from me. I have the authority to lay it down and the authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. Remember, again, if Jesus is the shepherd and we are his sheep, how cool is it that, again, that he's fighting on our behalf, right? Well, let's think about, again, this isn't in my circle. Everybody close your eyes for a second, right? Okay? You're a small, meager little sheep, right? You're just munching on your grass in the pasture, okay? You're enjoying a tasty little lunch, all right? You hear this weird snarl. You lift your head up and you see this massive wolf that's right in front of you. You see drool coming down from this wolf's mouth. His jaws open, you see his teeth. You can even see the blood from another sheep that he just mowed down. He's standing right in front of you. Pretty freaky situation, right? You're helpless, you're vulnerable. Okay, you can open your eyes now. That's a scary situation, right? You're by yourself. You're about to face utter destruction. But then in this analogy, you have Jesus, the shepherd, who just swoops in. The wolf scatters. He just saved you from utter destruction from the wolf. Jesus says, no, not my sheep, not this flock, not one of my followers. He's literally on the front lines, willing to lay down his life, like one of the verses read, for the sake of his herd, his flock. And if you think about it like this, Jesus quite literally laid down his life on the cross, right? For all of us, for our sins, for your sins, for mine. And again, if we truly believe that Jesus is the shepherd, we are his sheep, we see that he's willing to risk his entire life to fight on our behalf. What is our role, or what is our response as his sheep, as his followers? If you think about the role of sheep to their shepherd, there are a few different things that come to mind. It's almost this idea, this relationship of like a call and response. So like, let's say there's sheep over here, right? And the shepherd's standing right here, and he wants them to go into a new pasture, like a new area. He'll walk over there, and then he gives them this little calling. Right? Okay? So the shepherd leaves his flock, he walks to a new place, and if he wants them to follow, he calls them, and then they follow him. They know his voice, and they trust it because they know that he has their best interest in mind. So if Jesus is the shepherd, and we are his sheep, and if he's calling us to a place that he's already been, what does that look like? How are we responding? It's almost like in the scriptures, he's calling us to have a vertical perspective in our life. He's calling us to a place that he's already been. Because he is holy, and we're not. I mean, there's a video on the next slide that I think explains this pretty well. So this, again, keep this in mind. Sheep responding to the call of in this it calls it their master, but it's another word for shepherd. And I thought this was a pretty cool reenactment of what this would look like in our walk. I got close, right?
One more time.
So these are just random people trying to get the sheep to follow them, right? The first guy, they have no care in the world, right? Second person. They're more focused on the grass than these people. They don't care. Alright. The third person, right? Nothing. And she lost her hand. Okay, so the farmer, the shepherd, their master, right? He calls listen. Look at their response.
Look at them, look at them.
He got their attention.
They're coming. Oh my God.
Give the ball.
Oh my God.
And then he starts going towards it. That's pretty cool.
Oh my God.
Is that a trip?
Is she right? Oh my
All right, you can
God.
go back to the
This
slide.
is amazing.
All right, so with this in mind, if Jesus is the shepherd and we're the sheep, and he's calling us to respond, to follow him, are we actually responding? Are we listening to his calling? Are we willing to let him guide us and truly lead us? Are we willing to take up our cross and follow him? Again, one of the verses in John 10, the first part is, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that you may have life, and life to the full. We really believe that Jesus and God brings true life and life abundantly. What is our response to him? He doesn't say that he, as a follower of his, we're offered an easy life, not even a prosperous life. But he does offer us life and life to the full. As I was prepping for this, and as Mark had taught on the weeks past of Christians and some of their hurdles in their walk with Jesus, what are some of the things that we face or doubt that really get in the way of our walk? And one of the things was a Christian's battle with their own sin. I don't know about you guys, but at times if I'm really struggling in one area, sometimes I'm like too ashamed to come before God because I feel like I'm unworthy, that I'm so tainted in that sin that he doesn't truly view me as one of his children. That again, if I'm so caught up in following the ways of the world, that he's like, dude, I don't know, Joey, I don't know if you're really gonna make it there. But as I was reading and going through some of the commentaries of these verses, there was one phrase that stuck out that I thought it was pretty powerful. It's one of the authors wrote, "You can't out-sin the cross of Christ." Guys, you can't out-sin the cross of Christ. So again, if you have that same visual going with Jesus as the shepherd and us as the sheep, you can almost view, like again, if here's like the herd or the flock of sheep, and if you view as like going astray or leaving that flock as being caught up like in a sin or walking away from your faith, I think that it's pretty crazy the things that Jesus might do. Okay, let me tell you guys another story that Mark actually used a few months ago. But if there's a shepherd and he sees one of his sheep that constantly is like leaving the herd, one of the things that he'll literally do is he'll leave that flock, he'll walk up to that sheep that's gone astray, literally break their legs, he'll pick them up, put them on his back, walk back to the herd, stand back up at post, and leave that sheep right there. So that way he knows where they're at all times. He doesn't do this to like smite or to hurt the sheep. He knows that they're constantly getting lost. They're going astray. He does this to make sure that he knows where that sheep is at all times, to make sure that they're always going to be looked after. If that, again, obviously you saw the photo of the sheep with a bucket on its head. Sheep aren't the brightest of animals. They're cute and might look cuddly and whatnot, but they're kind of stupid. But one of the other things that Mark and I were talking about on Wednesday is the fact that like if there's a pasture and there's a bunch of sheep in that pasture eating the grass, if they eat up all of the food in that area, they're not going to try to find another pasture or like some other grass, another grassy area to eat. Instead of that, they're literally going to stay in that same area and they'll begin eating the poop of the other sheep, which ultimately is going to kill them. That's pretty gross. But that just puts into perspective the intelligence of a sheep. But again, if we go back to like the idea of the shepherd that broke the sheep's legs in order to make sure that they weren't wandering, they weren't going astray, and that he knew that they were cared for and looking at, so he could again watch them or have eyes on them at all times. Do you ever think that Jesus kind of does the same thing to us? No, I definitely think that there's some times where he breaks us down so that we can focus on what's truly important, him and our walk. So I don't know about you guys or where you're at today, but I think some of the most powerful questions we can ask ourselves is, are we following the calls of the shepherd? Are we following in the correct flock, in his flock? Are we focusing on other things? Are we going astray, focusing more on friendships, on trends, on popularity, on fleeting, feel-good things or experiences? What herd are you more focused on? Have you guys ever heard the idea of like herd mentality? Yeah. Does somebody want to tell me what it is? What do you? No, I'll read the definition. I know.
It's like when you follow other people
Yeah.
because of what they're doing, you want to be like them.
Yeah, exactly. So the definition from Google, so it has to be right. The definition of herd mentality is the tendency of the people in a group to think and behave in ways that conform with others in the group rather than as individuals. I'll read that again. The tendency of the people in a group to think and behave in ways that conform with others in the group rather than as individuals. Continuing the illustration of sheep and a flock or a herd. Is your community, are your friends lifting you up in your walk with the Lord? Are they encouraging you? If that's the case, amazing. If not, I would argue that there's definitely some changes that have to be made. Are you one of the people in your friend group that are bringing other people down, or causing them to maybe spiral in a downward sin cycle? If that's the case, I think that there's definitely some changes that have to be made also. If we go back to verses 14 and 15, it reads, I am the good shepherd, I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. Jesus, as the good shepherd, literally owns us. We're his sheep. So there were three just small little points. It was remembering that Jesus is the shepherd, the good shepherd. Two, we're the sheep. The third was more of a question, but it's what is our response, or what are we called to do as his sheep, the possessions of God? And I would argue that our calling is to put our trust in him, knowing that he has our best intentions at heart. And the second is to be obedient. How many of you guys went to Hume Lake last year? Yeah. Are any of you excited to go this summer? Yeah. Woo. One of the things you guys remember Johnny, right? Johnny Artavanus?
Yeah.
That guy is a legend. But one of the things that he kept saying last summer was this, and it's really stuck with me. Anyways, but it's God is holy, I am not, and that's a problem. What are we going to do about it? Does that ring a bell for anybody? Anybody remember that? He said it like at least 10 times a day, so that's why I kind of remember it. God is holy, I am not, that is a problem. What are we going to do about it? And the idea is, again, keeping the visual, the imagery going. If Jesus is the shepherd and we're his sheep, I pose it this way. We are sheep, we're not a shepherd, but we need one. What are we going to do about it? Because as we've talked about, without a shepherd leading us as his flock, we're headed for utter destruction. We would head for ruin. But the question now is, even if we know that, what are we going to do about it? We have to follow and trust him. Because as he said at the end of John 10:10, I've come to give you life and life abundantly. If we truly believe that he's the shepherd and offers us life, we put our trust in him and follow him wherever he's calling us. Because he's the way, he is holy, we are not. We need to surrender and faithfully and fully trust him. And that's where, if we make that decision, again, to really trust him, and as we mature in our relationship and in our walk with him, that's where you figure out, obviously that relationship that we saw with like the sheep when they were doing the weird calls, there were the 3 people that tried to get him to come to him, but only the shepherd truly could get him. Or if you think about it and you take time to really get to know Jesus as our shepherd, he's going to show you extraordinary things. And he's going to show you the ways that you can grow in your walk that you might not even know are possible. But he's the only way. He is holy, we're not. Alright, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for today, Lord. I just thank you for our amazing time just saying tonight, Lord. Just what a blessing it is to live here and just do life alongside all these students and the brothers and sisters here. I just pray today, this afternoon, even the rest of the week, Lord, that we would just be grappling with this idea. Have we made that decision